Hey, it's Lost in Plot. We're back talking Yellowstone again. We're at episode 7, Keep the Wolves Close. Now, this one was written and directed by co-creator Taylor Sheridan, and this is an interesting episode because we are jumping into a pretty big endgame between some characters here. Now, the criticism I talked about last week with some of the articles that we saw online is that the season may not be good, and my theory behind that was because we didn't have enough conflict driving the main narrative forward, the way we have in prior seasons. And I think people were missing that from this season because we got a lot of episodes that seemed to be filler, maybe, treading water. Well, I really liked them because they're these awesome standalone episodes. They weren't taking us on a broader journey through the season to give it an identity and really push all these characters forward in terms of development and what's going on with our main plot. But we got a good direction going here. It kind of falls out of the sky. It does. It seems a bit random here, but it makes sense, and I think it's the logical step forward and that it needed to happen, but the how of it happening, yeah, it can seem a little bit random here. So this involves Dutton, it involves the ranch, and it involves an unexpected announcement from someone in high power within the state that kind of forces Dutton to initiate a new endgame, and this goes directly head-to-head into a conflict with Jamie. And there's a pretty incredible moment, and you can be sure that Beth was there to see it, between Jamie and Dutton, where it's kind of the opening salvo of what I assume to be the real battle between them. Because Jamie is someone with intimate knowledge of everything that's going on at the Yellowstone. He's not someone you really want to be going up against. While he's got skeletons of his own in his closet, and I've mentioned this before, maybe more than anybody else, at the same time you're taking a pretty big risk if you're putting him out in front of the cameras and saying, okay, let's do it. But I think that's where we are headed, and I'm all for it. I think that's a great new development. I think it's a meaty conflict that can push us forward and finally bring Jamie back from the hinterlands where he's been with his biological father, to get him more in the mix again, to get the heads kind of smashing together. While instead, much of this season, they've kind of been operating their own little worlds, whereas now we're actually pushing them up against each other, and we ought to have a lot of real conflict. And I think there's only 3 episodes left to go here. Only 3 more episodes of Yellowstone this season. So I would expect on those 3 episodes, we're going to be covering a lot of ground. One of my favorite moments from this episode is right at the end when Dutton kind of gives his speech about progress and progressives, and he is the opposite of that. He is what progress smashes up against. It's just a really interesting speech given. I was on board with this fully. It links a lot of the characters together. Seemingly random aspects are now, you're seeing them bent into the fold. Beth is kind of realizing the end game from market equities and deciding what her next play is, because what they're doing is maybe a bit bolder than she thought they would. So now it all kind of puts the pressure on it where this is really our only way forward. And I think a lot of these characters know it. Now, the character that's kind of left out in all this is Casey. Casey bought a house. He's a new homeowner, but in terms of what he's got going on story-wise this season, it's kind of fallen away and dropped off the table. So maybe we'll see him brought into this main conflict going forward, because it seems like it's going to be all hands on deck, and there's going to be a lot of fighting back and forth between these two groups. So this is more of the traditional conflict I think that audiences are going to be looking for, and now they're getting it. So you can argue that there's only 3 episodes left, so it should have been sooner, and that's a valid argument, but this is where we're at, and I think it's a good direction to go forward. The other story we got was Jimmy's down there still getting to know horses, and he got to know one particularly well in this episode with jobs that you may not have even existed until you saw it happen. But that's not really driving our main story forward, which I think is probably maybe frustrating some people and some viewers out there. But I'm still on board with this, and this is a good episode. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Good job by Taylor Sheridan writing and directing this episode and giving us a pretty cool endgame that I'm interested to see where it develops. I think it does bring all the characters in. It gives us a hell of a lot of conflict, which is what we've been wanting. Now it seems like we're getting it with 3 episodes left. We'll see if that's going to be enough to tie a bow on it, or if it's going to be something that spills over into next season, kind of the way they did with season 3. But we're at it now. 3 episodes left. It's time for things to happen. So hope you enjoyed this quick review of episode 7 of Yellowstone. If you're watching this season, leave me a note down in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking of it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out on Twitter. We'll be back next week with episode 8 of Yellowstone, some other film reviews and things like that for you. So we will see you guys on the next one.